All right, so our paintings are dry. This is the underpainting, the first layer of color that we've initially put down here. So everything's pretty light. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go back and be a little bit more heavy-handed with color. So you wanna use something that you'll have more control over. So instead of paint, I'm gonna use either markers or I could use color pencils. If you don't have either of those, crayons would also work. So something that you can just sort of press harder or lighter with and get more value, whether you want it darker or lighter with the colors you're putting on there. Plus you can control this more with the paint. If I took a wet brush right now and I started touching it to the image, it would reactivate the paint that's on there. It would start to move that around, and I want that to stay where I put it. So I'm gonna do the whole thing where I work from big stuff to small stuff again. So I'm gonna start with the ground here. I think the sky looks pretty good like it is. If I wanted to draw sun or clouds in there, I could, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and start on the ground. So I'm gonna put more green here, and then I'm gonna sort of move down with it, pressing a little bit lighter with that marker. Thinking again about, okay, well, if I can think of a place that should be darker, like underneath the bush would have a shadow. So I'm gonna put some of the green coming out from under that. I might even go into the bush here and add some lines to create texture of the leaves. I think that's looking a lot more interesting. I'm double checking to make sure you guys can see that in the frame. Yes. All right, so then same thing over here. And on this side, I'm gonna continue out from behind Mr. Gnome there. And I'm just gonna press lighter as I come down. Going right up against him, but not on top of him, pressing lighter as I come down. And again, I said you could use something besides markers. So let's say you're using color pencils. Well, I'm gonna go with a green that's darker than what's on the ground. I'm gonna start it out here where I did before with the paint, and I'm gonna come out from under the mushroom house, pressing lighter as I pull away. We know that effect is called blending, is what you guys should have said out loud. And as I come away from it, I press lighter and lighter. All right, so that's definitely giving it more of a three-dimensional kind of look to it. So I'm gonna go back to the markers, just to know these are showing up on the camera well. So putting some more of the texture on the bush here behind Mr. Gnome. And what I'm gonna do is I'm always gonna try to find a darker version of the original color. So after the ground and the bushes, the mushroom house would probably be next. So let's say I'm going for this darker purple because I started with that purple paint there. So I can outline the top here. That's where I started out with the paint. And then part of making things more three-dimensional, we've said, means giving it a light part and a dark part, okay? So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna put more purple on one side. I'm not gonna do that on that polka dot there because that's supposed to be a different color. And I'm pulling that across, but I'm sort of pressing lighter as I move across. And then maybe I come from this side, putting that effect on there. All right, and then I'm gonna go here, and I notice mushrooms have that texture underneath there on the underside, so I'm even gonna put that on. So I'm working on bigger stuff, and I'm gonna work down to smaller stuff. And there's even things here, I'm mostly adding color to things, but I might find that I'm gonna add things that I don't even have in there yet. So for instance, how's he gonna get in there without a doorknob? So I'm gonna draw on the doorknob. Maybe even put a little detail there above the window to make it look a little more decorative. So you're adding more color, blending it as you go, and adding more details. And you'll notice the more layers of color you put on there, the better it's going to look. All right, guys, so keep working.